Okay, guys. Sorry, I started the video earlier and then I got a phone call, so I had to restart it. I'm going to do the CBA review for Unit 2 and 3. Our CBA is Friday, and we are doing... you're going to turn in the review on Friday. If you get it signed by your parent or guardian, you'll also get an extra 5 points on the test Friday. The review and the test are going to be part of the second 6 weeks grades. So these are both going to go toward next 6 weeks. And then since I already started doing this, I'm just going to kind of explain how I marked off C and D, and then how I got my decimals over here on my table. So on C, I know that if I'm going, it says, which list below shows the following rational numbers in descending order? Descending is in Unit 2 notes on that green set of notes. It's one of our vocabulary at the very top, and it says decreases in size goes from greatest to least. So I'm going from my larger numbers, or my positives, down to my negatives, which are going to be lower. So this one starts with a negative, so I know I cannot be going from negative to positive and be decreasing, so I've marked off C. And then this one, I'm going from a decimal. If I change 60% to a decimal, it is 0.6 or 6/10. And that is less than 5 1/10. So I know that this is also not decreasing. So I have to look at my A and B. And now that I've changed all my rational numbers over to decimals, I can now compare it. I know that my biggest number is going to have the biggest number in the ones place, and that's going to be 5 1/10. And then I've got 5 1/10, 5 1/10. So they are both still contenders. So that's number 1. And then the next lowest number is going to be the next lowest numbered on my ones place, and that's going to be 5/4. They both have 5/4 as the second number. Then my third number, I'm going to look at my 10th place. So my 10th place, I have, sorry, not this one. We already used this one. We already used that one. We already used that one. The next one I've got is going to be 60%. That's the only other positive number that I've got that is on my list. And so we're going to use 60% is going to be the next number. Sorry, my light went out, so let me open my blinds. Okay, so the next one, and they both have 60% here. So now we're just looking at these last two decimal places. When we talked about this in class, we said that the bigger the negative number, the smaller that it is. So if we're looking at the 10th place, I've got a 0 here and a 4 here. I know that 0 is less than 4, but that means that it is a bigger number than this one if I'm looking at negative numbers. So my 0 3/100 is going to come first. That's going to be my fourth one. And then negative 2/5 is going to come last because that is my biggest negative number, so it is the smallest negative number. So my answer for number 1 is A. Okay, number 2, it says before Carolyn had to fill up her tank of gasoline, she only had 3/8 of a tank left. What decimal and percent are equivalent to 3/8? If you're looking at your cowboy notes that we passed out earlier this week, the cowboy is on the top and the horse is on the bottom, and the cowboy goes in the house at the end of the day. The horse stays outside the house. So we're going to change that to a decimal by dividing numerator by the denominator. 8 cannot go into 3, so you put a decimal and a 0, bring up your decimal. 8 goes into 30 3 times, minus 24. 8 goes into 60 7 times, minus 56. 8 goes into 40 5 times, minus 40 is 0. So my decimal is 375 thousandths. If I look at my decimal, I have 3 75 hundredths. That's not my answer. 375 thousandths, and then I've got 37.5. That's not my answer. Then I've got 375 thousandths. And then I've got 38 hundredths. That is not my answer. The only one with the correct decimal is C. If I want to continue and I want to multiply and I want to change my decimal to a percent, you're going to multiply that times 100, and you will get 37 5/10%. Okay, number 3, it says the Venn diagram represents the relationships between the sets and subsets of rational numbers. Then you've got your section C. you've got some integers, you've got some whole numbers. And it says, which of the numbers could be placed only in section B? Sorry, guys, this should only be section B. This should be section C, I'm sorry. So which one are going to be rational numbers? And if you're looking at your notes from Unit 2, the tan notes right here, it says rational numbers are numbers that can be written as a ratio of two numbers, a fraction, or representing a term or repeating or terminating decimal or an integer. And the difference between rational and integers is that rational includes decimals and fractions, integers does not. And so if I'm looking for just rational, I am looking for only fractions that will not simplify to whole numbers or integers, or decimals that can't change into an improper fraction that will reduce to a whole number and integer. So basically I'm looking for a fraction or decimals. If I'm looking at A, I know that those are all whole numbers, so that cannot go only into section C. Then this one, I've got 8 over 4, 12 over 3, 9 over 3, and 14 over 2. Those will actually simplify. 8 divided by 4 is 2. 12 divided by 3 is 4. 9 divided by 3 is 3. And 14 divided by 2 is 7. So those also will go into whole numbers. So those cannot only go into section C. The next one, I have a bunch of decimals. And then the last one, I have negative and positive numbers. And those are integers. So those will not only go into section C. The only one that will only go into section C is C. I did not plan that. Okay, let's do number 4. It says, Bradley bought a candy for the Red Oak Middle School concession stand. The table below shows the amounts of candy of each type that were purchased. Which list shows the candy listed by weight in pounds in order from heaviest to lightest? So we're going from biggest to smallest. First thing we need to do is we need to create a table where we are changing our fractions to decimals. So we have 3.2, that is the same thing as a decimal. Then we have 10 over 3. If I change 10 over 3 to a decimal, 3 goes into 10 3 times, minus 9, add a decimal and a 0, and that looks like it's going to keep repeating. So it's going to be 3.333. So 3.3. We'll leave it like that until we have to add zeros. Then the next one is 2 3/5. So 2 3/5. You can leave the 2 as your whole number and just change 3/5 because that's going to be your decimal. So 3 goes in the house, 5 goes outside the house. 5 cannot go into 3, so you add a decimal and a 0 and bring your decimal up. 5 goes into 36 times, minus 30, so my decimal is 2.6. The last one is 1/5, and that is in your cheat sheet from Unit 1. Unit 1, your cheat sheet is the green paper, and 1/5 is right here, and it is 2/10. Sorry, I've got allergies going on, guys, so I apologize. So this is, there we go. So now we have our decimals and we are going from heaviest to lightest. Our heaviest is going to be the largest number, so we're looking at the ones place. Right now we have a 3 and a 3. So Skittles and Snickers both have a 3s in the ones place. Now we need to look at the tenths place on those two. So the one that has the largest number in the tenths place is going to be Skittles. So Skittles has to come first. Then I've got my Snickers comes second. And then the next one is going to be Reese's. And last is going to be M&M's. So the only ones that starts with Skittles, goes to Snickers, Reese's, and M&M's is B. None of the other ones even start with Skittles. Okay, number 5 says Mrs. Johnson made 7 3/4 of slime for some of her classes, or some of her students. She plans to give each student 1/8 of a cup of slime. How many students is Mrs. Johnson making slime for? So I have 7 3/4, and I'm going to divide that into 1/8 cups of slime for each student so I can figure out how many students I'm going to be giving slime to. The first thing you need to do is change this to an improper fraction. So you're multiplying 4 times 7 is 28, adding 3, so 28, 29, 30, 31. So now I have 31 over 4 divided by 1/8. And you're going to change flip. So I'm going to keep the first fraction, so 31 over 4. Change my division to a multiplication. And I'm going to flip the next one. So I've got 8 over 1 now. Now I've got 31 times 8. So let's do that to the side. 8 times 1 is 8. 3 times 8 is 24. So I have 248 over 4 times 1 is 4. And that is not any of my answer choices. So I need to make sure that I reduce that or divide it out. So I'm going to divide it. 248 divided by 4. 4 cannot go into 2, but 4 will go into 24 6 times minus 24. And then 4 goes into 8 2 times minus 8. So my answer is 62, which is C. Number 6 says, Megan is having her annual Halloween party. She bought 35 pounds of candy to be shared equally between 7 friends. Which 2 equivalent representations could be used to determine how many pounds of candy each guest will receive? So if she's got 35 pounds, she has to split that up between 7 friends. And all my answer choices talk about dividing, so I'm going to divide that by 7. The only ones that look like this are A and C, so I'm going to take off B and D. And I know that if I have 35, it's going to go in the house, and 7 goes outside the house. So if I change that back to a fraction, my cowboy is inside the house. My cowboy is also on top of the horse. My horse is outside the house. My horse is also underneath the cowboy. So the one that looks like 35 divided by 7 and 35 divided by 7 is going to be C. 35 divided by 7, 35 divided by 7. Okay, number 7 says, Allison bought some cowboy boots for $250. She later sold them on Let Go for 7/8 of the price she originally paid. Which statement about the price Allison sold the boots for is true? So what we're doing is we are taking our price that we originally purchased. We're going to multiply it by 7/8. And is my answer going to be bigger or smaller? If this number is less than 1, then my answer is going to get, excuse me, if this fraction is less than 1, my answer is going to get smaller. If this fraction is more than 1, then my answer is going to get bigger. So if I'm selling this, then this number is going to get bigger, sorry. So if I multiply 7/8 times 250, my answer should be smaller than 250. So let's go back to our problems. It says, Allison sold the boots for slightly more than $250. So if my answer is smaller, then it's not more than 250, so it cannot be A. It says Allison sold the boots for slightly less than $250. That one could be true because we're going smaller than 250, so it could be less than. C, Allison sold the boots for 7 times $250. It would be 7 times 250, but you would also have to divide by 8, so it cannot be C. And then Allison sold the boots for 8 times 250, which we're not multiplying 250 by 8 anytime, so it cannot be D, so the only possible answer is B. Okay, let's do number 8. Number 8 says, Heath went on a work trip to Russia. He has exactly $25 and will purchase a souvenir for his wife that costs $10. What percent, sorry, that should say percent, of his money will Heath spend on the purchase? So he's going to spend $10 out of $25, and we need to change that to a decimal and then change it to a fraction or a percent. So 10 goes in the house, 25 goes outside the house. 25 cannot go into 10. So I had a decimal and a 0, bring up my decimal. 25 goes into 100 4 times, so minus 100. Oh. Then my decimal is 0.4. If I multiply that by 100, you will get 40%. So he is going to spend 40% on his purchase. Okay, number 9 says Joe and his 3 friends went scuba diving while on vacation in Jamaica. Joe, I'm gonna do this, each person, I'm gonna put their number or their integer down. I'm gonna write it down next to their name. So Joe dove 6 feet below the surface. So Joe went -6 feet. Then Samantha dove 7.5 feet below surface. So Samantha, -7.5. Then we have Andrea dove down 2 feet. So Andrea, -2 feet. And Jeremy dove down 4.5 feet. So Jeremy, -4.5 feet. Part A says label the number line with the depths that each person went and write out their whole name. So if I start at 0, I know that this is going to be, and this is going to -8, so this is -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, -8. So Joe went down to -6, so I'm going to put a dot here, and I'm going to write Joe out to the side. Then Samantha went out -7.5. -7.5 is halfway between -7 and -8, so I'm going to put a dot here, and this is Samantha.